Okay, so we are doing the raffle, and in Venmo we have $1,035. In cash we have $725, and the finale pot total is $1,760. Okay.
All right.
All right. Woo! Do you want to give it a shuffle? Justin, you want to give it a shuffle? Nice shuffle.
We want the PAs.
Yes, we want the PAs to win. That's what we want to win. And this is the moment of truth that we have all been waiting for. Dion, you might want to come closer. Emily, you might want to come closer. What do we have? Who is it? PAs! Oh my God, give me the ticket. Let's see the ticket. And it's from Justin! Okay, so congratulations to all the PAs. And the winners of the PAs are Justin Baldoni, our winner. Lovely. Wow.
That's hilarious.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi besties, welcome back to my channel. Blake Lively's famous friends played a pretty critical part in what she did with this film and how she leveraged her control, according to the Statement of Undisputed Facts, which was filed yesterday in court by Wayfair. Now, this is a statement that they're saying these are the facts as we know it of the evidence that we have that shows what happened in this situation. Blake will have an opportunity to respond with her own and refute all of these claims. But there's been a lot of questions about, what happened to the text messages between Blake and Taylor. There was so much in the months leading up to this that we were like, why haven't we seen anything between Taylor and Blake yet? Why is it that Blake has put all this stuff on the docket as it relates to Wayfair and we're seeing their communications, but why aren't we seeing Blake's side of the story, right? We're also seeing that within their summary judgment and their undisputed statements of fact, text messages that Baldoni shared between he and Blake are under seal. So actual text messages that you and I saw when we saw their amended complaint are being redacted in these reports. And so we're not able to see what we already know happened. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen to have someone put something out publicly and then redact it on this end. And it's only being redacted because Blake is demanding that they're confidential, right? She did this with her CRD complaint. She filed her CRD complaint under seal after she gave it to the New York Times. And now her own text messages with Baldoni are under seal, even though we have them from their amended complaint. But text messages between Blake and her friends are also under seal. We know that there was only one friend that really Wayfair was interested in, and that was Taylor Swift. And it was because Taylor Swift was at the penthouse when Blake wanted to speak to him about the rooftop scene, right? And it's ironic and funny because in their statement of undisputed facts, when they talk about this scene, they don't use Taylor's name. They call Taylor a famous friend, even though we know it was Taylor. Let me give you an example. Filming began. Lively used famous friends to press Baldoni to accept her revisions to the script. On April 8th, Lively sent Baldoni her proposed revisions to the rooftop scene, in which the two main characters first meet. We see that these are text messages that Blake sent to Justin. And then on April 14th, Baldoni told Lively he liked the revised scene, and he added that. Lively explained that, and Lively has since disclosed that her husband was actually who wrote the scene that she proposed. Well, all we have to do is go to April 8th on their amended complaint, and we see these text messages are actually where she's calling Taylor her dragon. She's like, I'm Khaleesi, and these are my dragons. Remember that? Because on April 14th, she sent a text that said, if you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi, and like her, I happen to have a few dragons, for better or for worse. but usually for better, because my dragons also protect those I fight for. And really, we all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. Right. And these are those texts where this is after he was like, it would have been totally fine. I would have respected everything. You didn't need to have Taylor there. And we know that on April 12th, that's when a mega celebrity friend of Reynolds and Lively walked into the room and also begins praising Lively's script, right? So they don't reference Taylor outright, and we know it's Taylor. So as I was doing my own deductive reasoning, I'm assuming that later in the same statement of facts, it says, Lively used the influence of her famous friends to take over the film entirely. We know that this is about Taylor because of the music, right? And it says, on or about February 22nd, 2024, Lively told Sony that she would not agree to promote the film unless she were permitted to participate in the edit. During the ensuing weeks, Lively told famous friends. She also did not hesitate to disparage Baldoni among her Hollywood crowd, describing him as blank, for example, as blank. So these are text messages that Blake had with friends about Baldoni. There's really only one friend. I mean, she said that Gigi had information. She said Alexis Bledel. She said that America Ferrara. She said that Amber Tamblyn. She said that I'm trying to think of who else. Taylor Swift were like among the friends of hers that would have information about what happened on the set. So it's like I don't know whose texts that they got, but the only one she thought about was Taylor Swift. They referenced text messages she sent in April and all the way part of this process where she was texting with her friends about him. Lively urged blank as well as her famous friends blank. These are all part of her exhibits that are under seal. For instance, in April 26, 2024 messages, Lively responded blank. What it sounds to me like is that she could have been talking with her famous friends, right, about what she could do to influence and gain control over the film. This was something that Wayfair had suspected all along, and Taylor Swift had denied. We also know that Bradley Cooper was involved in the screening that she did of her film cut. So was Bradley Cooper was named by her, so was Hugh Jackman. So who is she talking to here that she's getting influence and recommendations from about this film? It sounds like she's got friends helping her and influencing her on what to do. All the while she's disparaging Baldoni to them so that they don't like him and they don't trust him. And so it's like, she's coming in as like the Wonder Woman saving the film from disaster. There's also references of her disparaging him at the premiere with her famous friends. Who of her famous friends were at the premiere? Hugh Jackman was there. Hugh Jackman was at the premiere. Taylor did not go to the premiere of It Ends With Us, but Hugh Jackman was. So I don't know if the text messages that we're going to get are from Taylor and from Hugh or Bradley Cooper or whoever, but I do think that the fruit of this discovery, and I do think that there's going to be some part of Taylor's communications in here because the references to what happened with the rooftop scene are in the summary judgment. And a bunch of stuff is blacked out, redacted, and Blake's text messages between friends are also included in discovery. She has attempted to conceal all of this from the public, and Wayfair has already stated that they want everything unsealed, even the texts. They want the depositions unsealed. They want everything because they don't feel like any of this should be hidden from the public. I'm sure Blake is going to try to fight that and say she needs to keep these sealed. We'll see what the decision is when it comes to like Lyman, but it's clear that these text messages are in there and there's stuff in here about Taylor. I don't believe that Taylor is involved the way that Blake says. I think she used Taylor to get influence. But to further sort of drive home this point that Taylor is being brought up in this case and she's being asked about and she's being discussed in depositions, Mr. Baldoni himself testified about the process that happened when she was using her friends to gain influence and how it impacted and sidelined him from the film. And in his testimony, he specifically mentions Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, and Shawn Levy. The excerpts are sort of like partially cut off. We don't have the full transcripts yet of them. So right now you're only getting like a clip here. But it says in their circle, Hugh Jackman, Shawn Levy, and Taylor Swift. So these are the three famous friends that are apparently in the circle around her that are being influenced or influencing her, or she's using as influence and to gain leverage in this film as well as to get help from. And he says, by that point, as I testified earlier, I was essentially forced or threatened to step down off my film. I wasn't able to finish my own film, even considering it tested higher. Somehow, the actress of my movie, who was not a producer, was able to take complete control of the film. By this point, Miss Lively had requested that my name be removed, so I had my a film by credit removed. I was removed from the majority of the marketing materials from the poster. I was being removed for the most from the trailer. I know that she's been working with Taylor Swift to make sure that she got the song that she wanted in the film, and I had assumed that that was not a battle or a fight that I could ever win. All of the cast had unfollowed me, which is a very public thing to do right before a movie comes out, all in unison. And at that time, I was being threatened via my agency that if I didn't release a statement, then the gloves would come off. So the way that it sounds to me is that Taylor had some level of influence here. The text messages are Blake complaining to people. She's systematically taking steps while they're also weaving in text messages of Blake and her friends talking about things that are happening in the movie or in the creative process, and then she's also using Taylor as a tool to get more and more leverage. And because Blake can bring Taylor and Hugh and Shawn to a premiere or bring them into the movie to get a wider audience to watch, she becomes more lucrative to Sony than Baldoni does because he can't bring those people. She can. We know, if I'm just going to be honest here, I don't see anything in here to show me that Baldoni's a liar. Everything that he's put out so far, it's obvious that they have so much evidence that proves that he wasn't doing what Blake said, right? So why should I now not believe that Taylor was somehow involved in these conversations? Whether she knowingly or just offered advice to a friend, it doesn't really matter. Her music ended up in the film, and Blake claimed that this budget didn't have the budget for a song like Taylor or have the budget for the song she wanted. And so they had to get favors to get the music. Who knows if that's true? I mean, I'm sure that Taylor was paid a licensing fee. But I mean, do you remember how back in the day there was that person from the inside in the crew who said that like Taylor wanted her composer to work on it? Well, it wasn't Taylor's composer, but it was a composer that they used on Deadpool and Wolverine, right? So that can be Ryan and Shawn and Hugh, right? We know that they scrapped their entire music. The entire like composed score was scrapped. Why would Blake scrap everything and then use like a soundtrack of her favorite songs to put over that and then hire another composer? None of that really makes sense. Well, she had to do that to get the PGA credit, right? But who is consulting her along the way with this? Ryan, Shawn, Taylor, and Hugh, obviously. And they are more valuable to Sony than Baldoni. I understand that he feels like this whole thing just like blew up and it spiraled out of control. And what I see in Justin is that he's a sensitive guy. He seems to have a little bit of an ego. They all do, but mostly he had a vision for what he saw. He worked tirelessly on that vision. He had an idea of what he wanted to do. It got ripped out from under him. He relented and relented and acquiesced and acquiesced and acquiesced, right? And Blake used her famous friends. And now we know her famous friends are Hugh Jackman, Shawn Levy, and Taylor Swift. So all of this is to say that I believe that Taylor has involvement here. I believe that she could have had opinions on what music was used and how her music was used in the film. I think if, the same way that Blake can say that Taylor is her dragon, Taylor could say that Blake is hers, and that, you know, if Taylor wants her music to appear a certain type of way, which she has the right to do, she might have influenced a lot of things here. And obviously, Sony wanted that in their film because of how much press they got when that song was in the trailer, right? And he's being removed from the trailer, and she's talking shit to her friends, i.e., Taylor and others, about him. So let's hope that Wayfair makes a choice to unseal, or that Blake and Judge Lyman don't fight this, or that Blake doesn't fight this, and that Judge Lyman unseals these, because I think all of us have a right to see what's happening behind the scenes. And a lot of you have said to me that, like, you can't be friends with someone like Blake and not know who she is. And I fully agree. And I fully agree that you can't be friends with someone like Ryan and not know who he is. So you have to be in the same stratosphere in terms of like what your agendas are and what your goals are. And these are all very powerful people in Hollywood, in music and in film, that are benefiting from each other's fame. And the more fame you combine together, the more powerful you become. And so Taylor benefits from her friendships as much as Blake did. Taylor's by far a bigger celebrity, right? But she still has always benefited from her circle of powerful friends herself. And if this is how they do business, it's scary. So, do you think we're going to see the texts? I certainly hope so. But now we know the names. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.